Russ.
Right, all right. Y'all are sounding good this morning. Y'all, we have an exceptionally interesting pair of folks speaking to us this morning. Now, this is serious, actually. Marcus Everhart and Joseph Carrion. And they spoke to Robert's class here a few months ago. But it is phenomenal about their testimony. So, with a brief introduction, we'll start. These guys met each other in the 90s at Donaldson Prison in Bessemer. Double maximum security. And they hated each other. You're seeing they're getting along a lot better right now. Joseph, who is the tall white guy, has just had his 4th cancer surgery, and it was Friday, and since December 25th. So please help me welcome Marcus and Joseph, or Joseph and Marcus.
Hey, how's everybody today? I tell you, I don't know whether I need this mic. My mouth's loud enough. It's an honor to be here today to be able to share some of my testimony with you folks. You know, it's just amazing. First and foremost, I just want to give God, my thanks and for Him to allow me to be here today. And I'd just like to thank all you people for your prayers, because even when I didn't know you guys and before I even got saved, it was your guys' prayers that helped get me there. And, I just really like to thank y'all for that today. And I was born in Chicago, Illinois, and I moved down here when I was 2 years old. And I was raised by a mother that was an alcoholic, and she had many different men in her life, and she cared more for her booze and her alcohol than she did her only son. And the only remembrance I really have of her is, when I was 2 and 3 years old, she'd come in and she'd rape me. And she'd bring other men in and let them molest me. And I think back, how could a mother do that to her only child? And, I can remember I was 4 and 5 years old, and I'd hear them coming in drunk, and I'd try to get away from them, and I'd climb out a window, and I'd sleep underneath the house in the mud with the bugs and the spiders just to keep them away from me, because I felt more safer there than I did in my own home. And this would just continue to happen all the time. And but the funny thing is, the love of a child with her mother is so strong that even though she was doing those cruel things to me, I'd still cry for her. Every time she would leave, I'd cry and I'd want to go with her, and she wouldn't let me go. And, I'd end up being 5, 6 years old to stand there by myself. And it just continued to happen and happen. And I remember, it was like it was yesterday, this man named Norman come in, and I didn't wake up. And he wanted me to do things that I didn't want to do. This time I was 6 years old. I said, well, I can stand up to him. And I tried to stand up to him, and that man began beating me, and he beat me with everything he could get his hands on. And I know for a fact, if it hadn't been for a neighbor next door that heard this kid screaming and hollering and crying, that I'd have died that night. I ended up in intensive care for 2 weeks in Children's Hospital right here in Birmingham. And the whole 2 weeks I was there, she never come to see me. The only time she came to see me was when she come to pick me up and bring me back home. And so, I went right back into the same thing, and to getting beaten and molested. So, at age of 10, I said, well, I can't take it no more. I run away. How many of us in here have children? Raise your hand. So you realize how young 10 years old is. And, so I was 10 years old, and I was living on the street down here in Birmingham, and I was prostituting myself out just to be able to have food and try to survive, because I had no other family. And, is that something I'm proud of? No. But, you know, it was all I knew, and I wasn't afraid. That was the strangest part about it, is I wasn't afraid of what would happen to me out on the street because of what had already happened to me in my own home. So it couldn't be no worse. So it was on a Friday evening, and this van pulled up, and this lady rolled down the window. She's like, "What are you doing out here on the street?" She's like, "You're just a kid." She's like, "Where's your mom and dad?" I'm like, "I don't have a mom and dad." She's like, "Well, you do now. You want to go live with us?" And I got all excited. I'm like, "Yeah." I didn't even know them. I said, "Yeah." I run down this little alley and grabbed this little brown paper sack. They had clothes in it, and I got it, and I jumped in the van with them. Well, a lot of us have heard the old saying, out of the fire into the frying pan. Well, I went with these people, and they lived off 280 towards Chelsea. And, you know, a lot of things go around us and we don't know about. You don't know what goes on behind closed doors. And a lot of us, we like to put things out of sight, out of mind. Well, they were high priests for a satanic occult. 450 family members. So for the next 30 years, that's what I was raised in. I was raised to hate people like you. I was raised to not know fear. Now this is right here, right close to where you people are now. You know, when we think, well, we only see stuff like that. Stuff like that only happens on TV, you know, or somewhere else. But, you know, if you'll stop and think, that was for so many years, we never thought that anybody would attack the United States. Look at 9/11. So, you know, I was raised, I seen stuff happen out of those 30 years that would make the hair stand up on your arms, I could tell you about. You know, and that was the way I was raised for 30 years. I was a very bad person. But, you know, our mission is we would go to schools, to churches, to try to befriend other kids, as kids, to try to get them into where we were at. You know, that's what they wanted us to do. They wanted us to bring more people into this family. And so, you know, you'd find a kid your age and you'd find out what he was into and you'd go, "Hey, look, you know, I like that too. Let's start hanging out." Then you go, "Well, hey, let me show you something really cool." And so, you know, they go with you and you start showing them these things and they see these people doing things that, you know, they don't understand. But one of the misunderstandings about this, people think that people that are high or they're on drugs or they do something that we read about, they think that they're part of a satanic occult. A real satanic occult don't want you high. They don't want you on drugs. They want your mind to be clear and focused so they can teach you the things that they want to teach you, so they can brainwash you. So for the next 30 years, that's what I was brainwashed. For the next 30 years, I went through 4 marriages. I would come home, and if my food wasn't cooked right, I'd beat my wife. Is that something to be proud of? No. I was over in Vestavia. I come out of a food world over there, and this man, he was on a walker. And for some strange reason that day, he looked at me and he said, "Son, God bless you." And when he did, I just yanked the walker out from under him. I threw it across the parking lot, and he hit the ground. I didn't touch him, but he fell when I yanked that walker out from under him. Because I hated God so much. In fact, I hated everybody. But that was the way I was raised. And so that continued for the next 30 years. Well, one day I just decided it was like the drop of a hat. I know now that it was God that intervened, but at that time I did not know. I walked in and I told him, I said, "Look, I'm through with it. I want out." Well, they told me, they go, "You can't get out. The only way you can get out is go be with your father in hell." And I'm going to tell you why, because there's doctors, there was lawyers, there was judges, there was police officers, all in his family. People that in society, we look at them, we think, "Hey, these are great people." But like I said, you don't know what goes on behind closed doors, do we? don't know. And so they told me, said, you can't go out. You know, they was afraid that if I quit, that I would say something about them, and then all of a sudden people around them would think, well, they were just really bad people. They're, you know, they're no good. I was afraid I would harm them. Well, they go, you can't go nowhere. Well, I left anyways. Well, I get about 2 miles down the road and I get pulled over. You know, I wasn't stupid. I knew what time it was. Because like I said, there was police officers, judges, and everybody else in this. I get pulled over. The officer come up to my car. He's like, sir, will you step out of the car? And I got out of the car. He started handcuffing me. I said, why are you handcuffing me? He said, because you're going to jail. I said, for what? He said, well, you got drugs in the car. I said, no, sir, I don't. Anyways, he took me to jail. I stayed in jail, Jefferson County Jail, almost 3 years before I ever went to court. We would get a lawyer. He'd come and say, I'll take your case, Mr. Carrion. They don't have nothing on you. I'll take your case. He'd come back 2 days later and go, hey, I'm not going to handle your case. I'd rather have my bars than your case. Why? Because lawyers talk to lawyers and judges talk to judges. So I sit there for 3 years. Finally, they go, hey, you going to court? I'm like, how am I going to court? I don't even have an attorney. My ex-wife at that time was trying to get me an attorney. She was trying to get me out of jail. They wasn't going to let me out of jail. So I go to court, and he goes, here's your appointed attorney right here. This attorney come up to me. I'd never seen him. He goes, hey, he said, son, he said, I don't know who you've made mad or who you've pissed off. He said, but if they could give you the death penalty, they would. So I went in front of this judge. His name was Judge Pearson out of Jefferson County. He looked at me. He said, Mr. Carrion, he said, you're charged with trafficking marijuana. I said, sir, I didn't have no pot. I said, where is it at? Well, they lost it. He said, but I believe my officers more than I believe you. He said, I will make sure you will not see daylight again. He said, I sentence you to 2 life sentences plus 13 years. So here I go. I get sent to Donaldson. I go into Donaldson, which is West Jefferson, which is one of the highest max camps in the state of Alabama. I'm mad, I'm angry, and I'm hurt. So when I go in there, I do the only thing I know how to do. I had me a Satanic Bible brought in, and I start teaching those guys how to worship Satan. Become gang affiliated. I mean, that was all I ever knew all my life, and I was mad, and I was angry. So that's what I knew to do, so that's what I started doing. So I did that for the next 12 years. So all I did was teach these people how to hate. And how to hate and how to hate God. Well, a guy I worked out with, his name was Charles Gordon. He was a Christian guy. He loved God. He'd always used to try to talk to me about God. I'd tell him, I'd say, hey, shut up. Don't even talk to me about that. But you know what? He never gave up on me. He continuously would work out with me, and he'd go, I'm praying for you, brother. I'm like, shut up. And something just brought us together. Well, they had this event come along called Kairos. Any of you guys ever heard of Kairos? It's a prison ministry. And they come in and they spend Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with you. They feed you, they talk to you, they show you about the love of Christ. They show you that, you know, there are other things out there in the world besides hate. So he signed me up for that event, so I got mad. My name come out on the newsletter. And I got mad at him, and I went after him. And I said, why would you do that? He's like, how long has it been since you ate any real food? Let me tell you, people, prison food sucks. I said, well, it's been 12 years. He said, well, go for the food. So I did. Well, I went that Thursday, and you had to stand up and you had to say something in front of all these guys and these people that you don't know, these free world people. And I stood up there, I said, let me tell you something. I said, I don't like your God, don't want to know your God, and I have nothing for your God. So don't even talk to me about God. And I sat down. I told myself that Thursday night, I said, I'm not going back. I'm not going to do it. And so Friday morning, I found myself going back. Friday evening, I told myself the same thing, I'm not going back. I found myself going back Saturday morning. And that Saturday morning, I seen something I've never seen in my entire life. I seen love in these guys. And I've never seen that. I was in my 40s before I knew what getting a simple hug and a kiss was. I never knew love, didn't even know what it was about. I was in my 40s before I knew what a birthday or a Christmas was. I never knew it. Saturday, I ended up giving my life to Christ. And it was like somebody flipped a light switch. And so I knew what I had to do. So I after Kairos is over Sunday, I go back onto the prison yard. And I start telling these people, I go to all these people that I've been mentoring all those years for 13 years. I go to them, I said, look, I was wrong. I'm an idiot. You hear me?
Yeah, I did, right.
You're coming, so you might as well hang on. I'm like, I'm an idiot. They're like, what is the matter with you? I'm like, look, I was teaching you wrong. I'm like, they are, God. And I started doing ministry work on the yard there and trying to help people change and trying to reach these guys that I'd messed their life up. So I get moved into this honor dorm, and it's this big dorm, and you know, where it's real quiet and you can study good. And so I got moved into the honor dorm, and I get called up to the warden's office. And I go up to the warden's office, and he told me, he said, Mr. Carrion, he said, we got word that your birth mother died. He said, but, you know, of course, you can't go to the funeral because you got 2 life sentences plus 13 years. I'm like, yes, sir, I understand that. And, you know, so I came back and I thought about it a little bit because, you know, up to that point, I've never cried since I was a kid because I built that wall up to keep myself from doing that. And so I go back and I start back reading and start back doing my daily thing, you know, which was talking to people about the love of Christ and trying to get them to change, trying to get them to see that I was the wrong one. Well, 2 weeks later, I got called back up to the warden's office. I'm thinking, well, what did I do? Because usually when you get called up to the office, you've done something when the warden wants to see you. And so I go up there and my 14-year-old daughter got run over and killed. She was walking back from a store and a drunk driver ran up on the sidewalk and killed her. And, you know, all the religion and whatever you wanted to call it, it all went out the window for a minute. You know, and I said, well, I hope he comes here. I said, I hope he comes here. I said, because if he comes here, I'm going to kill him. And that's what I told the warden. I walked out of his office, and I walked back into the dorm. And there was probably 200 people in this dorm. And I had one son left. And I walked in, and I yelled to the top of my lungs. I said, Satan, I said, you can have me back. I'll come back to you, but leave my child alone. Because in my mind, in my eyes, I was thinking that was his way of punishing me. That was Satan's way of punishing me for turning my back on him. And so by the time I said that, the biggest hand you ever felt in the world, it was like it went on top of my head and it shoved me to my knees right there in front of everybody. I hit my knees and I started crying and I said, God, I said, if you're the God that they tell me about, if you're the God that I hear everybody talk about that can do all things, I said, help me. I said, please, I said, help me. got up and I brushed off my knees. And I went back to doing my normal things, praying and reading Bible. And I was like a sponge. And I'll tell you something funny it was funny to me because I wanted that word so bad that I had this little New Testament Bible, little bitty white pages. I'd tear little pages out of them, I'd eat them. Because I just wanted that word so bad that, I wanted to soak it up because I discovered something new. And when I do something, I like to do it 110%. Well, I gave my life to Christ in April 2003. April 2004, I get called back up to the warden's office. And I'm thinking, well, what's happened now? Is it my son? Because that's what I'm thinking. And I go up there and he's like, Mr. Carrion, he said, don't ask me how. He said, don't ask me why. He said, but I got a letter from Montgomery. He said, you're a free man. He said, get somebody to come get you. And I walked out of that prison with 2 life sentences plus 13 years. And I made God a promise. I said, Lord, I'll continue to do everything I possibly can. And God gave me Joseph Carrion's youth ministry, and I go into the inner cities and I talk with the kids, and we hand out crosses and Bibles, and we feed them and try to show them a difference, that there is other ways, other people that care, that do love you without because all they see is drugs and alcohol and gang violence stuff that I've seen and Marcus has seen. So I thought everything was going great. I said, everything's great. And I teach out at the Foundry. I've been teaching out at the Foundry about 5 years now and do prison ministry. Well, probably about 5-6 years ago, I woke up on a Christmas morning and didn't recognize my own family. When I got out of prison, be careful what you pray for, by the way. How many of you know prayer works? Raise your hand. You got to be careful what you pray for because, I didn't know what it was like to be a dad, to raise kids. So I prayed about that. Well, now here I am. Friday, the day I had my last surgery was my birthday on the 8th. And I was 57 years old, and I've got a 5-year-old son and a 7-year-old daughter at 57. So please be careful what you pray for. But I woke up, and I didn't know my own family. And I walked out in the living room. It was Christmas morning. I'm like, well, who are y'all and what are y'all doing here? And my wife knew something was wrong, and they took me to the hospital, and I went into a coma, and I ended up staying in the hospital almost 9 months. I had an aneurysm to bust. And the doctors called all the immediate family in, and they told my wife and some people that Marcus knows that had come up there, and told him, said, well, if he comes out of this coma, he's going to be a vegetable. But undoubtedly, he didn't know the same God that we know. Amen. I come out of that coma, and so I got a little, I was in a wheelchair for quite a while, and I got mad and I got angry at first because I couldn't understand why. Of course, I guess some of you gone through it, but I blame God. I'm like, why is this happening to me? I give my life to you. I talk about you 24/7. Why is this happening to me? I sort of had a pity party. And I went back and I apologized to him, and that's the great thing about serving a loving God and a forgiving God. I went back and apologized to him, and then, right after that, I'm thinking, well, okay, everything's fine. And, since then, back last year, I got diagnosed with cancer. Also 3rd stage of cirrhosis of the liver, and got cancer in my liver. And I was just thinking, well, you know what? What else could it be? What else is going to happen? And I'm only human, guys, so I go through these stages. I haven't worked in almost 2 years. you know, and I just been trying to depend. My wife's not capable of work because of my youngest son. And so, you know, it's been a struggle, you know, and I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. You know, some nights I cry, and I just wrote a thing on selfishness. Because on this last surgery, you know, sometimes you get sick and tired of being sick and tired. But the thing that I'm so thankful for is you guys are my chemo. I do chemo once a week, but it's people like you guys, like each and every one of y'all are that you're my chemo. You give me my healing. You help give me my healing. You know, and you know, because I look at my kids sometimes, and I told my wife last week, I just went through this stage where I told my wife, I said, you know, I was supposed to, you know, I said, if it wasn't for you and the kids, I'd just say, I'm tired. You know, I'm tired of the chemo. I'm tired of being sick, tired of waking up sick. And she told me, she goes, well, I thank God you got me and the kids. And then, you know, I thought to myself, I said, well, you know, that would be selfish of me. Because I know God's got more work for me to do. And, you know, I felt that it was selfish of me thinking that way because, you know, I got my kids and my wife and my family, and I got you guys. I've got friends, you know, that would be affected of it, you know, at that point. If I, you know, even was thought about just saying that, you know, I'm quit taking everything. I just can't do it no more. But, you know, I believe it's so important for you guys to worship and give God his praise and glory when you're up here and when you're down here. So, you know, if I can be at the rock bottom and still give God praise and glory and love, then I know he will reward me. Now, as far as this character, we met at Donaldson. We was bitter enemies. And like I said, I was a bad person at Donaldson. And he was actually coming out. He had got his little group of guys, his clique, and they was going to come out on a blacktop and rob me, you know, because, of course, I had same way I had guys with me, and they honestly, just to be straight up and honest with you, you know, they wanted some dope, and they knew that I sold dope in prison, and I was, you know, because in there you do whatever you have to do to hustle, to make money. And so, you know, I got in there and I fell off the face of the earth. You know, I got white power tattooed down the back of my arms. I was a racial person. I hated everybody. And so they was on the way out to rob me. And Marcus said that he got halfway down the hall and something just told him to turn around. And so he turned around and went back. But the funny thing is, I never knew about it until he shared it. We was somewhere doing a Kairos. And he was sharing that with the guys there, and because I'd never heard it before. I never knew they was even coming out there until I heard Marcus share it with some guys. He goes, well, we was going out to rob this guy and take all of his dope and his whatever he had, and he said that guy's Joseph Carrion. But, you know, we didn't like each other. You know, you pass each other in the hall, we sort of look at each other all crazy, you know, because we knew each other carried weapons or whatever we had to have, we had. And that was just part of survival in there. But I just really appreciate you guys to keep my family in prayer, my kids, myself, and because I know God is the healer, you know, and, you know, my main prayer is for let my kids be at an age to where they understand, because I made them a promise that I wouldn't do to them what my mother did to me. And but just keep us in prayer, but just also keep everybody in prayer, because there's so many people out there that's got a lot rougher than I do. I know they are, and I think we should keep them lifted up. But thank you guys for listening to me.
Good afternoon. I promise you I won't be long before y'all, and I ain't finna try to. And first of all, I'm one of those guys. I can't be behind the podium. Understand? I got a thing about, you know, being in the pulpit. When I minister at church, I'm out among the people, because You know, I feel like this. You're in the pulpit, you're there by yourself. You know, I know I need Jesus, so, and I feel like, well, the folks out here need Jesus just as bad as I do, so it's more Jesus out here than it is up in the pulpit. So, you had your turn, sir. But Joseph Carrion, my upbringing, I was raised in the church. I come up in the church. Went to Sunday school every morning. Church every Sunday. Matter of fact, I had a drug problem before I was 7 years old. Because I was about 5 years old, and I got up one morning in my mama's house, and my father was there. And I told my mom, I ain't going to church this morning. And she said 3 words. She said to my dad, she said, beat that boy ass. And he didn't ask why or what. He just went to whipping on me. And after he got through whipping, he drugged me to church. And ever since then, I had a drug problem. But, so it was in other words, if you woke up in my mama's house, you were going to church. And I can remember my Sunday school class, we used to have to recite the books of the Bible, and you had to say a Bible verse. You know, we call them scripture today. And Deacon Wright, when you miss a book in the Bible, when you saying the books of the Bible, he whipped you. If you misquoted your Bible verse, you got to whip it. So I know about getting whipping. But like I said, I read in the church. I knew right from wrong. But I got a taste of what Satan had. And I liked it. So I went away from the church and started doing my own thing. I was a robber. I liked to rob. That's what I did. I just like to rob people. You know, I didn't see why you should work and I work too. You work and I rob you and I reap the benefits. Well, you know, we all have misguided. You know, we have thoughts that, you know, when you're in the world, this one thought is this one lick and it'll set you for life. And your best thinking gets you locked up in prison. So as I went to prison, I stayed the first time 7 years, 3 months, and 11 days. And at them 7 years, 3 months, and 11 days, I probably can count on one hand how many days that I wasn't high in prison. Drugs in prison then was plentiful. And I tried to use all of them. I lie to you not. I know people get up here and they say they recovered and God, I've been delivered, but man, when I was getting high, I loved getting high. The only thing I wanted to do when I was getting high was get higher. You know, people say they've been trying, you know, when they were doing drugs and things, they were trying to kill themselves. I never tried to kill myself, promise you. I never tried to kill myself. I ain't gonna tell you that I like to kill myself a couple of times, but it wasn't because I was trying. It was because I was trying to get higher. So I got out of prison in 1987, and everything was just going good. I mean, it was great. I was going to church every Sunday. Then I stopped going to church every Sunday. I started going every other Sunday. Then I stopped there. I started going once a month. And I stopped there. And once I stopped going to church, it seemed like everything just changed. But I didn't realize that until the day I got locked up. As they locked me up, when they closed the door, it like God replayed the last 4 years of my life. And that's when I noticed everything was okay until I stopped giving God some time. I ended up at Donaldson. They locked me up, first of all, for a crime that I didn't commit. Finally, I promise you I was nowhere in the vicinity when this crime was committed. But God had a plan. In 1991, he couldn't have told me that that was his plan for me. He planned for me to get locked back up because that didn't set right. So, you know, I got locked up for a crime I didn't commit. It took them a year to get the people that did it to confess and write a statement that I had nothing to do with it. And when they got the statement written and signed and everything, they get it back. My mom and them get it back to the parole board and to folks down in Montgomery that need to see it. But the folks in Montgomery say, since he been back in prison, all he been doing was getting in trouble and causing trouble. And the one thing I'm not proud of, but I did it. I used to get to fighting with the police in prison all the time. They can tell me, we locking down, catch your cell. And I'd be like, man, I'm not going to catch my cell. He said, I was just rebellious. And the incident Joe was talking about, it was like 1998 or 99. And the officer that was supplying me and my crew our drug, we had to call him and let him know not to bring the drug because someone had got wind of it and they had said, you know, they were waiting on him. So the only person we knew that had some drug was Joseph Carrion. And the last of our little weed we had, we smoked it and, you know, kind of had a little pep rally. Said, we finna go out here and rob this cracker. We finna kill this cracker. Because we knew from the start that this man was not going to give us nothing without a fight. Me personally, I said, man, we're going to have to kill Joe, man. I just know this. Ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I said, don't go with me if you ain't ready to die, because he going to try to kill you. And we were walking down the hall, man, and I promise you to this day, why I turn around, I never know. But when I turned around, I just didn't feel. It was, you know, my desire to do wrong was gone. And what he didn't know, that when I got back to the cell, I actually pulled out my Bible and went to read. You know, and I'm like, man, you ain't read the Bible since you've been in here. What's going on? So I really was confused. I was confused, but I had went to Kairos, and Kairos is an organization that we used to say, a bunch of white folk come in, feed you free world food, and tell you about Jesus. So the thing in prison for us, well, we don't, like Joe tell you, he wasn't lying. Prison food sucks. And you get a chance to get some free world food, you take advantage of it. So when I went to Cairo, now I wasn't as bold as him. I wasn't saved at the time, but there was a man from Birmingham by the name of Moulton Williams. A lot of y'all might know him. He big insurance guy and everything. But that whole weekend, he sat next to me at the table, and he talked. I wasn't even getting him no conversation. I was just there. I was telling him, listen, I'm here for the food. When you bring the food, you can talk to me. Talk to me about the food, though. Talk to me about God, because I already know about God. I was raised up in the church, so. But Moulton didn't give up. After Kairos, every month I get a letter. I get a letter from Moulton every month. For 3 years, I got a birthday card from this man on my birthday. This man don't even know me. And people coming in showing you unconditional love. You don't see that in prison. All you see in prison is somebody getting beat up, somebody getting stuck up, somebody getting killed. And you learn to accept this as a way of life. He might have white power on his arm, but I was willing to cut it off. I wasn't studying Joseph. I couldn't stand him. He couldn't stand me. But there was a respect between us because he knew if we tangle, death was the only way one of us can get out. He wasn't going to let me whoop him, and he definitely wasn't going to whoop me. So the only way we can be together today is God. Amen. See, it ain't, we made a truth, and God brought us together. We've been out in the neighborhood together with his ministry, my ministry. I volunteered Birmingham City School, mainly Parker. It's a battle. It's rough out there. It get rough. I get tired. Just last week, I've been working for over 2 years on a part-time job. I ain't complaining because God been provided. But last week, my finance didn't hit rock bottom. The bottom fell out. I ain't know where I was gonna get nothing from. I couldn't see, and I was trying everything. When you done lived in the world, you can do some things when you get on the phone and holler at some folks. And I did everything I thought I could do, and I got a word. It said, when you've done all you know to do, you just stand on the word. And I like to you now, I did clear blue sky. Robert Reed called me and said, let me take you to lunch. I said, okay. He called me on Monday, we went to lunch on Wednesday. Tuesday, my phone go crazy. It just went out. It won't hold a charge. I can't talk on the phone. I got about $30 in my pocket. I got $10 in my bank account. I ain't got nothing. When we left after lunch, I said, Rob, I'm gonna go over here across the street and try to get me a phone. Well, I had left my shirt in the car because I was on my way to work too. So I go to the car, get my shirt, and as I'm walking on, Robert called me back. And I ain't told Robert how bad I was doing, but Robert went in the pocket and gave me $200. And I hugged him, almost kissed him, because I knew it was God. $200 ain't nothing, for real. But it meant the world to me then. And I promise you, there come time when you get down and you want to question God. Job said, he asked him, why me? Why not you? Why not me? If he don't do nothing else, he don't done more than enough for me. Amen. But I'm serving a second, third, fourth, fifth chance God. Every time I mess up, he's willing to forgive me. And I don't always mess up by mistake. See, sometimes I mess up because I get in me. I know y'all want my testimony, but this is testimony. Mine, because I'm learning to stand on the word of God and rely on him. Is it always easy? No. When I started volunteering at Parker High School, you don't know the kids at Parker High School. These kids ain't got no fathers. Some of them mamas ain't even 30 years old. Matter of fact, a lot of them ain't 25 years old. And they ain't got no guidance from the house. So what they learn it on the street, and they're trying to bring it into the school, so you got to, I wear a shirt, I got a shirt. It got Thug written across the top. And they see that shirt, and they say, what's up, Thug? Or do you know they can relate to Thug? But it means truly humble unto God. So I get into the conversation, then I tell them, I said, read what Thug stand for. And I tell them, I said, this is the only Thug that's going to make it into the kingdom of God. And see, they don't start the conversation, so now I got a conversation going and we can relate a little bit. And I thank you for taking all the time you did, sir. It's time running out, and I appreciate y'all having me. I consider it an honor and a blessing that people will even want to listen to me. And one thing I want to leave y'all with this. He told y'all he was a devil worshiper, and that's all good, but now he just looked like the devil. He ain't the devil for real. Come on, bro. Hey.
All I can say is, wow. Gentlemen, you really touched us.